Welcome to Fridays on the Subs Week on the Pagan Perspective. I'm Yucca, your host, and as most of you have probably already heard by watching the previous videos, this week's topic is just one word. It's karma. So we're usually given the topics at the beginning of the month, and we have a little bit of time to think about it. So as I've been going about my daily life, kind of had this idea in the back of my head, and being just one word, there's so many directions that we could take this in. So I really am going to try and focus on really keep it a little bit shorter and try not to go too far off topic, and we'll see how that goes. So to start, the idea of karma, first off, I think we need to distinguish between the Eastern philosophies and the Western. And I don't think that I can speak very well to the Eastern, as I don't practice any of those philosophies. I don't have too much experience with them except for, occasionally sitting in a zazen at a local monastery. But from my understanding, the Eastern concept and the Western aren't actually the same. The Western really is more, I think, kind of co-opted, maybe misappropriated the term, depending on how you look at it. But basically, it's the idea that what comes around goes around. What you do in how you act is going to affect you in some way. And I don't know this for sure, but my guess is that that idea and the way we interpret it probably comes from a lot of the very strong Christian Abrahamic roots of the idea of you do good in this life, you go to heaven. You do bad, you go to hell. That sort of idea. But now it seems like it's a term that a lot of folks use independent of what religion they are. And it really seems to be the concept of what you do affects you. So there's two different similar paths, but you can go on. And that is, there's the sort of instant karma. What you do now, you are really rude to somebody, you make fun of them, and then something bad as a result happens to you, or something similar, it's looked at as a way of teaching a lesson in a way. And then the other is what you do in this life affects you in the next life. So instant and lifetime. So I'm going to address both of those a little bit separately. I'm going to start with the lifetime, because the lifetime one assumes reincarnation. It assumes past and future lives. And I think that in order to do that, you need to have a concept of self that is somehow continuing, that you're a continuing individual, that there's something about you that is separate from the body that you're in. That there's this spiritual self, call it a soul, something like that, and then there's your physical self. And the idea that your spiritual self, your soul or whatever, lives and occupies a physical. For me, that's not how I see life. I don't see myself as this individual, as Yucca, who is that there's something, the core something that's the same as when I was conceived, when I was born, to the different stages throughout my life, to my death, to my next life. I don't look at it that way. I don't think of that. What I see myself, what I see this tree, Megan the cat who's wandering around, the turkey here, everything that's living is an ecosystem. It's a community. I am a collection of trillions of cells, and those cells and the materials, the elements that make up those cells, are continuously changing. And the source of all of that is the earth. It's the air that I'm breathing. I'm breathing in, right now, oxygen, and that's going to become incorporated into my cells, into my body. The food that I eat, the carbon that's in the air is going to go into the tree or the plants, then I'm going to eat from that, that's going to become part of me. Then the exchange of material, then I'm going to excrete it or breathe it out, I'm going to lose it in hair, in skin, and that's going to become, again, part of everything else. But it isn't, for me, it isn't that as all of this is happening, there's something that's still me. I mean, let's see, that's not a good way of saying it. Okay. So this collection, this entire, all of these cells, these organisms, and the cells they all have a code that says how to make this thing. Just the way perhaps a forest is a bunch of different things, and it's trees, it's the weather, it's the little animals, it's the earth, the dirt, it's all of that. And that all together makes up an ecosystem. And that is a community. And it continues on to be a forest, hopefully. Not always, sometimes it shifts into something else. And that might happen from anthropogenic sources, or that might simply happen because of the continuing progression or succession of ecosystems, just the way that I'm going to grow up. I'm going to hopefully age instead of dying soon, but at some point I'm going to die, and everything that is me is going to go on and is going to be something else. But Yucca is not going to, as the community of Yucca, continue. So because of that, I don't see that the actions that I do are going to affect some future Yucca, because I don't think that there's going to be a future Yucca as me. Yes, the choices that I make are going to affect the material that is me, where that material ends up, how I affect other things during my lifetime, that's going to change. But if I do things that are good or bad, and that's an entire another topic, whether how one perceives good or bad, if those even exist past the specific individual or culture. But anyways, that's in terms of the karma for past and future lives. You've got to look at humans or things, beings, as continuing on as individuals throughout time, as opposed to seeing, and somebody else might have a way of seeing it that might work with the way that I'm explaining it or look at it, but I haven't come across that yet. Okay. So the second part is the everyday life. Now, for me, I don't believe in anybody. I don't think that there are reasons that things happen. I don't think that I was put on this earth. I hate that phrase, actually, because I don't think of myself as on this earth. I think of us as being the earth. But anyways, in order to fulfill a purpose, I function. I do things that cause things to happen, and things happen that affect me. But I don't think that it happens because, I don't think bad things happen to me because I was bad at another point, or because I need to understand some lesson. I can choose to understand and learn a lesson from these things, and I might learn things whether I think I'm learning them or not. But the way I look at it is that humans and other animals, some other beings, that we're made up of patterns. And we're creatures of habits, and the way that we think, the actions that we do, affect our patterns. And we could look at that as the actual neural patterns that are being formed, the number of times that you use a specific pathway, it becomes strengthened. So those patterns are going to continue or affect the next pattern. So if I am constantly angry, I'm actually strengthening those patterns in that pathway. And so the way that I'm going to interpret things, the unconscious choices I'm going to make, are going to fit with whatever patterns I've been forming. Now, all of that is not to say, even if I think super positive thoughts all the time, if I'm, just a very calm person, all of that, that there isn't going to be a hurricane that's going to destroy my home. Like some things, we're part of a system, and there's parts of the system that we affect, and parts of the system that we have less of an effect on. Obviously, I do have some sort of effect on the system around me, the small ecosystem, which has an effect on the larger, which has an effect on the larger. But just because I think positive thoughts doesn't mean that it's not going to rain tomorrow. And that's the way I look at it. So I know that this seems like really off, and it's kind of hard to tie it back to karma, but that's what, for me, what we do affects how we experience things and what happens to us. And it isn't because somebody says it should be that way. It isn't because I'm supposed to learn something from it. It's because I'm part of a system. I am a system, I'm part of a system, and everything's part of a system, and you do something happens as a result.